Have you ever felt that you're just not good enough? That no matter what you do, there's this nagging voice in your brain that tells you you're not good enough, you should be better, you should be different, or worse, you should be like someone else. I've been there and I struggled for this for many, many years. Can you relate? But here's what I discovered. True happiness comes from self-acceptance. Welcome back. I'm Stella, and if you're new here, I talk about how women over 60 can reclaim their true self and live their best life. If that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I'll begin with an illustration that I created in my journal, but it later on became an editorial illustration. Stop saying sorry for being busy and owning your time, for setting boundaries for yourself, for not being perfect all the time, for crying and showing emotion. Have you been there? I have been there many times. So let's begin. Why is self-acceptance even important? Well, self-acceptance is the foundation of self-esteem and inner peace. I recently did a video on that. Here's the thing. Self-acceptance. It's not them acceptance. It's not us acceptance. It's self-acceptance. And that's because you're the only one who has gone through this journey and you know what you sacrificed to get to where you are today. It's a very simple concept, but we always dismiss ourselves. So celebrate that. So when you accept yourself, of course, you're going to feel more proud and confident about who you are. And that will reduce shame. It'll reduce self-criticism. And it'll also reduce some of the fears you have. The impact isn't an overnight impact. This is inner work. That's why I did a whole video on it. It's so important. We deserve this time to give ourselves to feel good about who we are, because we are great. We didn't get to be 60 without going through all kinds of schools of thought and experiences, right? The impact of self-acceptance is huge because that's where we find our happiness, and that affects our relationships. Why do we even struggle with self-acceptance? Number one, social comparison. You know, friends, families, celebrities, social media. We've all heard it. We all know how unhealthy social comparison is. So that's number one villain. Unresolved past experiences, especially in your childhood or in your earlier years. You know, when you get to be 60, there are things that occurred in your life, lots of things that you probably wished you had dealt with differently and you left it unresolved. You can't go back and change the past. So let's leave that there. What counts is moving forward. I believe the biggest culprit for struggling with self-acceptance is our negative inner dialogue. Over the years, we've made that dialogue go over like a tape in our head. That has to stop, and you have to be deliberate about it. I talked about that in one of my previous videos as well. And it's all about mental rehearsal. Instead of saying the inner dialogue, rehearse in your mind saying something positive. Reframe that sentence. Look for all your attributes because you do have them, especially if you're an older woman. You have hard-earned wisdom and experience that makes you wonderful. There are a few steps to take to embrace self-acceptance. Number one is letting go of past hurts. This is so difficult. This clings to us like a sock with static electricity out of the dryer. How do you stop it? Again, I talked about that much earlier, and it's all about mental rehearsal. You know, we can't change our past. We can change what we do going forward. Let's keep that going. Volunteering. This is so wonderful because you get to volunteer where you have an interest. Now, it doesn't have to be a soup kitchen. It doesn't have to be at the Goodwill store. It could be like I did at a marathon. I volunteered at a marathon. I handed out bananas and protein bars and water bottles, and I joked around with the runners and I encouraged them. This is something that I am interested in. You have an interest. What is it that you love to do, that you would love to volunteer your expertise? You know what? Organizing, things like interior decorating or baking skills. These are things that we accumulate in our lives. This doesn't have to be a big ask. So think about how you can volunteer. It always increases our self-worth, and we make friendships. That's another good thing, because when you're over 60, your circle gets smaller, so it's nice to get out of your bubble sometimes. Along the same lines of volunteering is celebrating your strengths. I just mentioned a few things like organizing, meal prepping. These are strengths that we accumulate as we experience life. Celebrate those strengths. You've earned it. Another way that you can increase your self-acceptance is by forgiving yourself. We touched a little bit on that when he talked about letting go of the past, but forgiving yourself is even bigger. It's very heavy. We've all made mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, it means you're not trying things. That's another important point. So go easy on yourself here. Release unrealistic goals. If you're like me, maybe your life didn't turn out as you planned or thought it would. That's all right, because guess what? At our age, we get to rebrand our life. Yeah, you're rebranding your life. You're starting over. And the nice thing is, because you have so much experience, it's so much easier to do it. You know where to look, how to look, and what needs to get done. And when you get to be 60, you know things. So pat yourself on the back, because you can do this. Rewriting your inner dialogue is so critical. And this is just a habit. And habits can be changed. Catch yourself when you're using negative self-talk. Do away with that. Be proud of who you are. Another way to embrace self-acceptance is to just be you. Being authentic, reconnecting with who you truly are, is the most important thing you'll ever do. How wonderful it is to finally embrace who you are meant to be. The older we get, the more important that becomes. So, don't try and be who you're expected to be. Be you. You're wonderful. Some practical action steps that I took that I'll share with you today is start small with a journal. I started journaling things that are positive about myself rather than the things that were negative. Knowing the negative things is important so you don't go back to them. But writing down the positive aspects of yourself is more important. Rehearse those every single day. It will change the way you think and it'll help you change the inner dialogue. So start small with a journal. Another tool that I was able to use was Louise Hay's Mirror Work. That was something I struggled with, really, because she suggests take a little makeup mirror, hold it in front of your face, and say to yourself, I love you. Can you imagine that? It was so hard to do. And later on, I discovered Mel Robbins' High Five habit, which is, again, using a mirror. First thing in the morning, go into your bathroom and give yourself a high five, instead of looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, oh my God, you look like death warmed over. But these are little tools that you can use. It takes time before you get comfortable with that. I sure know that it was hard for me. But if you try it, you'll see it'll make a difference in the way you talk about yourself and the way you feel about yourself. It's so important to accept who we are. You know, we didn't get to be 60 easy. We had to go through a lot of bumps along the way. Be proud of those bumps. You are amazing. I'm Stella. If this message resonates with you, let me know in the comments, especially if there's something that you particularly liked or even disliked. I need to know these things. And also, don't forget to download a free authenticity checklist that I created to help you along with this exercise. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please like, share, and subscribe. Maybe someone you know would benefit from this. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.